Even if you study with the same teacher, the same piece, it will sound different in your fingers. The sound will be different. Everything will be different because your soul and your heart and your mind is different.
You are listening to And If Love Remains,
Speak peace like a Buddhist.
a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host, Mike Leavitt.
Yes, Rachel, we are indeed listening to that great podcast in the sky, And If Love Remains, and I am its humble messenger, Mike Leavitt. I'm very excited to have with us some special guests. First of all, once again, our maestro of music, the king of keys, the prince of pianism, the liege of legato.
That's a new one.
Okay. Elias-Axel Pettersson, welcome, my friend.
Hey, Mike, it's great to be here. We have some wonderful guests today, which I know you're going to get to introduce, so very excited.
I'm so excited, yes. And we also have a wonderful pianist, a beautiful person.
And friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Aline Boyd.
Oh,
welcome.
oh, thank you so much. I'm so very honored to be here and with wonderful people who I really admired. And I am very, very, very honored because I have my friend, a wonderful pianist, wonderful musician from Spain, Pablo Galdo. So he's coming directly from Spain to Arizona.
Oh, it's so wonderful having Pablo here with us.
Thank you. I am also honored to be here.
Wonderful. It's great to have you. Truly. We're excited to have you. It's been wonderful having you here in the brutal heat of Arizona. Thank you for coming.
Yes, it's good also to be in this weather.
Putting up with us.
Right, putting up with the
through the 110. Yeah.
It's been glorious. Aline has organized some amazing master classes for Pablo. I've sat in on several of them. I've learned so much. So I'm excited to get to know you a little bit more, talk to you about the piano and music and philosophy and whatever we want to talk about. You know, this is good stuff. Elias, talk to me.
I want to hear the origin stories here too.
Well, yes.
We know about me, but Aline, we can hear about how she came to and Pablo, how he came to the piano.
Well, let's start with Aline. Aline, I'm very interested. Talk to us about, because you are a brilliant, beautiful pianist. You're from Brazil, and talk to us a little bit about you and your history in music and piano. And
well, since I was a very young kid, like I was 5 years old, I knew that I want to be a pianist. I never had any doubt in my life. I asked my mom, like, "Oh, I really want to play the piano. I love the piano." I cried when I used to hear people playing the piano, and I asked them, can I play even without knowing anything? And my parents were very like, wow, she really loves the piano. And they introduced me, they found a teacher for me. And I started taking first organ lessons. Before piano, I started with organ lessons. And I was very obsessed. Like I was practicing many, many hours as a kid without my parents telling me what to do. And then I was kid. Like, yes. And then I switched to piano because then I found the piano for me is the instrument that I love and that I cannot live without music. And then I decided to pursue a bachelor's degree in piano performance. And I love music. I just can say that I cannot live without music. I'm always thinking about music. For me, life without music has no meaning at all. So for me, there is no doubt about that. So this is a little bit about me.
Well, that's wonderful. You're definitely part of our tribe then, Aline. Because that's
beautifully said.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank
you.
It's cute. You used to cry when you heard music.
Yes,
when I was young and I
much.
used to play piano, people cried also. It was so
Yes.
bad. Anyway.
yeah. When I sang, yeah. Pablo, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your history with music and the piano. I would encourage anybody to go on YouTube, look him up on YouTube. Look up his amazing performances. I've really enjoyed listening to you play, and again, like I said, I've told you before, I've really enjoyed the teaching you've done. So talk to us a little bit about our superhero's origin story.
Well, I took the first lessons from my sister when I was small, when I was 8 years old. And then I started in the conservatory of my city. And that is my basic story since
Okay.
I was, how I started to play piano, because my sister already was a pianist. And so that is and there was a piano at home. And this is the reason why my parents brought me to the conservatory.
And you really took to it, like it was clearly a natural talent for you.
Yes, I had quite a lot of facility since I was small, but for some years I didn't take it very seriously. But then when I was 19 again, I took it very, very seriously and started to practice many hours.
What was it about turning 19 that changed you?
Because I went to Vigo, which is another city with a quite very good teacher, and therefore I got motivation. Motivation, I think, is one of the most important things. Without motivation, this is the engine of for doing things. There's the motivation. If there is no motivation,
Were your parents or your family musical at all? Did you grow up with
No, not
music?
at all. Not at all. My father was a carpenter.
Okay.
And my mother was taking care of the house. So the first person was my sister, actually, who played the piano. Yes.
Now, does she still play?
She doesn't play very much because she became a teacher in the high school.
Oh, good. Cool.
Yeah, she has a position, but still sometimes she plays. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So at 19, that was kind of your jumping off point. You really took it seriously, probably practiced 4, 5, 6 hours a day. Maybe
even
more.
Even
Wow,
more. Yeah. When I was 19, I sometimes practiced 9 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. See, and the first 6 months were very, very hard work. And then on those years, I practiced quite a lot. And then not too much as 8 hours or 7 hours, but very regularly.
Who were some of your inspiring teachers? You mentioned you went to Vigo and studied with somebody, but who were other people that really motivated you to
then
pursue?
When I was in Vigo, I took lessons in Madrid with Ferenc Rados. Ferenc Rados is the professor of, was the teacher of Andras Sif and, Sultan Koçis and the Choranki. And he motivated me very much. But of course, it was everything new for me. So it was not that easy, to enter into that new world, you see, because he's an amazing musician. And the Hungarian School of Music is also very deep. So I studied 2 years with him in Madrid. I traveled every certain time. I think I took 5 or 6 sessions every year. And then I decided to go to Hungary after it.
To study with him. Wow, that's amazing.
And I went to study with his wife, and with other teachers, Andras Kemenes as well, which they had a very deep and very strong Hungarian school.
What was it that was driving you? I understand you said motivation, but was it like a drive for perfection? Was there some inspiring composers or music that drove you, or what was that kind of internal motivation that you had?
Well, I think it was to go out of my city.
That's good. That's a good reason.
Expand, see the world.
And to go to a conservatory. And in that moment, I really believed that this was the best teacher I could ever have in that moment, because you can learn from everyone else, Yeah. Of course, before 19, I play also repertoire, but for 19 was the key point of my life, I think. And from that time, I started to take it quite seriously. And that's it.
Do you think how for any young musician, serious musician, somebody who wants to be great at their craft, you talk about like practicing 7, 8, 9 hours a day. Is there a time period in somebody's life that you think that's absolutely necessary for everybody?
No, I think everyone is different. Everyone has their timing, and everyone has their own rhythm. And for me, it was like this because I like it very much to practice piano. But at the same time, I realized that I could have practiced in a better way, for instance, in those years. You see, so if you have to choose between practicing 8 hours and so 2 hours per day or 1 hour per day in a very good quality, and 8 hours with not a very good quality, I will always choose 1 hour with a very good quality.
Right.
And if I have to choose between 8 hours with a very good quality and 8 hours without a very good quality, then it's clear what I think. Yeah.
See, okay.
So quality over quantity.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But also, I'm not sure that if practicing 8 hours per day, of course, is very much amount of hours, but it's not sure that you have time after for living your life, which I think is also very important to become a musician and to do other things and to read and to, I don't know, to have different goals in your life and to do different things which you like. I think we find our path during our path. How do you say? Path, during the years we do things, and you can find different things which you also like. And it's a pity because you waste time in your life if you don't do the things that you really like to do. Just because you have to practice piano in this case. So I think it's very good to do things which you like to do all the time. And this is the good thing. For example, I don't like painting. Then why should I,
Right.
But I like writing, or I like reading, or I like doing sport. And that is also fantastic. In fact, this is complementary.
Yeah.
Right.
For musicians, I think it should be very important to do physical activity. For instance, yoga or Alexander technique or Feldenkrais or all this stuff are part of the cardio to run every day. I think could be very helpful for the physical condition also related to the piano. And of course, after 2 months or 3 months doing a sport, you feel it very much, how you play much more free on the instrument, and also you have much more resistance. So I think everything goes together. I'm not a fan of sitting down on the bench every day practicing piano and not doing anything else. First of all, because I don't think it's healthy for the body. And also about another complementary things is what we eat, how we think. For instance, meditation is very good and very important. And what we eat, that also affects directly to our physical and psychological state of mind, and then affects directly to the instrument. So I don't believe to play piano is only about practicing many hours. And also, you see, for instance, the composers, most of them, Chopin, Mozart, and Bach, they were great improvisers. And then I'm surprised nowadays that people play Bach, Mozart, and all these composers, Beethoven, and they have no idea on how to improvise. And that is a contradiction as well, because the composers improvise it so well,
Well, one of the things you mentioned in your masterclass that I appreciated is the necessity of improvisation. And I think like bringing all those elements, bringing music and art and physical activity, all those things, I think adds to even that it puts your mind in a state that allows you to be flexible.
Absolutely. And I think this is the key. As more flexible we are, as much more wise making music, I think. And I think, especially for classical musicians, it's very important to do some improvisation, because usually they are sometimes not really flexible under my point of view. How I see classical musicians, they are very close, especially pianists. You see that we don't used to play with orchestra. So I think, or inside of an orchestra, because I think that is very important, this, to be able to improvise and to be able to say your own things, what you want to say. And whenever you play something that you want to play, you feel much more free. So you feel even that the every scale and everything arpeggio is you are playing much better when it's a product of your own imagination, of your own improvisation.
I have a couple of great things you're saying. I was very impressed you mentioned Alexander Technique and Feldenkrais. Actually, we had a couple shows on that. I've done some Alexander Technique, and we did some podcasts on that. Very helpful. And just getting the body ready, health, diet and all that. With respect to improvisation, I'm just curious, we all come from different traditions, and not to pigeonhole, but you both are coming from Latin traditions, and here I am coming from like a very, straight laced and there's not a lot of improv in my background, at least with piano. I played violin, I did a little fiddle. There's a little more in that, but I'm wondering if both of you can speak a little bit to how you grew up with maybe doing improvisation, whether it's with singing or dancing. Americans, we don't dance, but I know Brazilians and Spaniards dance. So, has that, you mentioned being more well-rounded, which we both agree with, and has maybe learning to improvise with dance and singing and music, shaped the way you guys make music? Aline, go ahead. You can start.
Well, I didn't take improvisation when I was doing a bachelor's degree in music, but I found that it's very important, for example, to play bossa nova, that I need to know how to improvise. So I actually took what we call in Portuguese harmonia popular. So learning about all the harmony, but in popular music from Brazil. So samba, chorinho. Then I start taking lessons. I took lessons with a very wonderful jazz player for 1 year, and it changed a lot of my perspective. I don't say that I'm a good improviser. I don't think that about myself, but of course it changed my perspective and opened up so much of my mind while I'm playing classical music. And I think, to be very honest, from my perspective, both things should not be separated. I think, from my point of view, we should learn as classical musicians since the beginning how to improvise. It's extremely important, and that's what I'm trying also to do with my kids. Like when I start, they come to me. They are very young. With my students, we improvise in the black keys. We get to listen better, because to become a very good musician, we have to listen first. We have to be able to listen. We have to be able to sing. Also, I took voice lessons. So I was singing a lot of Brazilian songs. And then I love to dance. People who know me, they know that you know me. Yep. So I love to dance, and I love to dance. And I think everything is connected. There is no separation. So this is what I think. Pablo, you can say what you think.
You can.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I am not born with improvisation. I mean, I was not educated in that way, but I realize, and therefore I am aware now how important it is, especially because I didn't have before. I think this is the reason why now I consider that this is very important. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I of course concur.
You do. Well, see, you improvise, and you come from a jazz tradition.
Well, what's funny is I was raised. I mean, my first teacher was very Juilliard classical, straight up. But I did fall in love with jazz. I did, and I think it does give you a really deep perspective on music, the language of music. Like, if you know the chords that you're playing and what the because we'll like take a theory class and we'll learn what the purpose of a dominant chord or something like that. But when you understand it and you play it and you improvise over it and you learn, like, if we did a tritone substitution, if we do something to help understand what that 5 chord is actually doing in the music, it helps us understand what the composer is trying to accomplish. Why does Beethoven go from 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 1 to 5? Well, it's because he's trying to build this tension, and you can do that. And I think improvising helps you understand that. And I think it also, just like you guys have said, like it helps bring peace of mind. I feel very comfortable playing, making mistakes, because I know if I just play it twice, then people will think I did it on purpose. That's the old jazz saying. And I also think, like, I think it really, I think, and you mentioned singing. I mean, I was a vocal performance major. So I think, and Pablo, you mentioned this in your master classes. I think it's brilliant. Like our most fundamental instrument is our voice, and everything kind of comes across that. And if we're able to sing a line, if we're able to imagine how that line is, why is that line musical, it helps us interpret what's going on.
Yes, you are right. You are right.
I have some questions because you've gotten to come here for master classes and talk. You know what? If you could maybe speak a little bit to your experience with teaching kids or pre-collegiate students, and this might be a little bit of an interesting question. Do you notice any differences culturally or musically or preparation-wise between teaching kids? And I don't know your experience in Spain, how many kids you teach or what levels or ages. Versus, you know, American kids, for lack of a better term, although there's a great diversity here. But do you sense any difference between the two countries or cultures?
You know, it depends because everyone is different. So I cannot generalize. I know kids in Spain, they study in the conservatory different subjects, also choir, harmony, and different subjects. As I understood from Aline here works different. But when I was teaching also, you know, I don't used to teach children. I used to teach people who goes to the university
College level.
I think college from 18 years old. So for me, I'm not very used to do with children, but I guess it's very similar. Because many times people who are 18, 19, 20, they forget very basic things, which every children should learn. In fact, you can ask them to sing one voice and to play another, and they say, no, I did this when I was a child. Then my question is, why are you not able to do it now, or why should you forget now? Because it's so fundamental, so important, you know? So exactly. And I think it's easier, actually, to work with children. Because you educate them from the beginning, and they can be quite quick. They go in your line. When you have people coming to university who are studying with another professors or another teachers, it is much more difficult because you have to change the line, the direction they were going to into another direction. And this takes time, especially when they are 18, 19. But when one child is 8, I think children, when they are small, they play in the most natural way. And many times, even you don't have to say anything. This is why you can listen to kids in YouTube who are 7, 8 years old, 6 years old, 9 years old, who play fantastic. Yeah, and even they didn't do these technical exercises or anything like that, but just they are able to play. Another point is if they are mature enough artistically, or if they understand what they are doing. But the reality is that they are able to play. So see, that I think to work with children is much easier many times than to work with university people, especially because it's much more difficult to change them. And so for your question, I didn't have a lot of experience here in the United States. I was teaching when I was in the Girls Wing competition in New York, and then I teach some master classes to American pupils. And I was also in California teaching, but my experience in the United States is not it's not that big. Yes, I had these kids on those days, but I cannot judge also because some they're
also very different
very
students
different.
That you taught.
All of them were very different, but fortunately I was happy that I could work with all of them and to give my best to all of them and to treat them like adults, because you say that I must not think that because they are 8 I must teach him in one way, and then because they are 18 in another way, because the music is music, and I think it's much more important the music than whatever we are like teachers. I think that to show the way of the music, that is, I try always to do that. If I can do it, I try always.
Yeah, it is interesting to have. I'm thinking of like beginners who are kids versus beginners that are adults, and you've taught them too. It's a very different experience. Challenges to both, you know, and advantages to both as well.
Well, if you think about the piano, like in some ways, I think other than maybe the voice, it is the most natural, instrument to play. It's your fingers. It's, as long as you're kind of in alignment, everything works. It works with gravity. It works. And that kind of brings me to another question I have. Again, and I have so many notes from your teaching, but I noticed, one of the students, for example, you had changed the height of the bench. You made sure that their wrists and their arms were in alignment. You also talked a lot about doing scales, how important it was to do scales. And I know that's a very kind of, I think of like Franz Liszt and, of his famously doing scales with his pupils all the time and things like that. Is that Chopin, Liszt, like, are those some of the people that inspire you or that you think about or that, where did you get some of those ideas?
Well, this is if you read books of history of music, even Rachmaninoff, he was educated that way. He was one of the greatest pianists for me, and I think for many of us. And he writes himself how he was practicing in Moscow, how he was born together with the music in the musical education, and he says that he was practicing scales, and they say scales in all variants of scale, all possibilities, different scales, arpeggios, chords with the metronomic mark, and then they had exclusive exams for technique. You see, and I think this helps because the old Russian school, they were thinking actually this way. They need to have an arsenal, like in the war, you see, an arsenal of weapons, musical weapons that they can use every time, whenever they need, whenever they have difficulties. So this was helping them very much, and therefore in the, how do you say, Antigua Union Sovietica?
Soviet.
So in the Soviet Union, the approach was more in that way. Nowadays also, they have in the Lessing School, for instance, and the School of Music before the Tchaikovsky, they have the technical exam. They have one technical exam, and they have another, which is to perform of the pieces. So I think it's very important. But more important, what I realize is how to practice the scales in a good way, in a healthy way. You see, and should be always a kind of rotation. After it's invisible rotation, but kind of rotation, so you are able to walk in a good way on the piano.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, they're always using that momentum, and that's beautiful. Yeah.
I was gonna say I was curious back to more origin stuff, and I love the technical stuff we're getting into too. But how did you guys? I know you're both pianists, and you grew up, going into different schools and all that, but how did you meet each other, and how do you know about your pianism? I met you here, Aline, and now I've heard about you, Pablo, through Aline, and I've seen you on YouTube, solo playing, and also with Martha Argerich. I've seen you in performances, wonderful things. But what are your connections? Yeah.
Well, we started to talk nowadays in 21st century. People through the social nets.
That's right.
Many times, and that was how I met her.
Cool.
But then I know her for around 5 years. And this idea to invite me she was very kind to invite me here to Arizona. It was already an old idea. Awesome. It's not just that it came now.
Well, you have family also in the States.
I have family in the States, yes, but in California.
Okay.
But for me, it was a chance to know Arizona, because before I was in New York, I was in California State as well, and I was in Ohio. And I was never here in Arizona.
Yes.
So for me, it was a nice opportunity to.
Yes, and I realized, I know Pablo because it's interesting. In 2018, I was accepted to study in Switzerland, but I was like, oh, my dream after I finished my master's, like my dream is to study in Europe, and I was looking for teachers, and I was like, oh, maybe I should go to Switzerland, or maybe I should go to Spain, but I didn't know Pablo Galdo at that time, and I was like, oh, he teaches in Spain. This guy, nice. But I would never imagine he would become my friend. That's awesome. That's awesome. So he became my friend. And then I was like, I realized he's very great teacher, and I was like, well, he's young, but he teaches with such a maturity,
Mm-hmm.
and I want my students, not just my students, but I want people to learn from him.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were talking, and I'm very happy we are able to bring him here. You know, the students are very happy with his teaching and very inspired to practice more. I am more inspired to practice, so I feel happy. And then for me, that's great. I'm happy.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
love it.
I have a question, Pablo, and maybe not necessarily on a technical aspect, but what do you notice that today, students and what are they doing well today, and what are areas that maybe that you see generally that they need to improve? Obviously, everybody's different, but generally speaking, like, do you see some patterns of what people are excelling at today, musically or with the piano, and what things that we're maybe teachers need to focus on as a teacher?
Yeah, I think that individuality is very important because nowadays, of course, some people very individual still, but it's much more difficult to find this because there are recordings everywhere, recordings in YouTube, in Spotify. Nowadays, much more many pianists than, for instance, 40 years ago. Only in China, 40 million pianists or 50 million. Can you imagine? So what we need to find, I think, is individuality. Someone who is able to say something different, which is also not easy, you see, because there are so many performances. But I think I would suggest to think by themselves. You see, there are plenty of pianists, less musicians. There are, of course, very good musicians, but not as many as pianists.
What makes a good musician?
Good musician? Many ingredients, I think. First of all, a good musician should know what he wants. The second is he should be able to understand music not from his brain, yes, but from here, inside, you know. I think to work hard, I think is important, or at least constantly, you see, to be regular in your work and your practice. And to always to discover yourself every day. That's also very important. And to think by yourself what you want, what you don't want. And then to try to be an artist, because as I told, there are million pianists, not so many musicians, and much less artists. And this is what I think should be our goal. And when we'll be at the end of our lives, we will realize that still we have many things to do, because you see the pianistic repertoire is huge, see, and it's never ending. And well, I think this is missing for me, that some differences, some individualities, you know. And concerning to the past times, I think the great masters all say that nowadays the level increased very much in general, because now, for instance, now was the big international piano competition, you know. She was also, Aline was also there attending. And there were more than 240 pianists who applied, who wanted to participate in Vigo. There was a pre-selection. I was not in the pre-selection jury, but the level was extremely high, almost in the 240, which means that we had to remove from the competition, we had to cancel the participation of around 150 pianists who were excellent.
Wow.
And that is such a pity, you see, because they wanted actually to participate, especially because the jury was Rafal Blechak, who was the winner of Chopin, Marta Argerich, and also Cyprien Katsaris. And of course, people feel motivated to play in front of them. And then the ones selected, the level only, I could see at one point that someone, because this can happen to our pianists, lost her memory a little bit, but in the reality they were all incredible prepared, very solid, with very strong technically and musically. See, so nowadays it's full of pianists in every corner, excellent pianists. I had a student. You were not because you were in Rossi's house, but after the next day I had a master class. The two following days, and one student came to study with me from California, and he actually works for Google. And her mother, I think, was Filipinian, his father American, but he was extremely well prepared. He wrote all the Debussy preludes. He was playing Prokofiev concerto, Goldberg variations, Bartok concerto, and he was working in Google. And that was very surprising for me how professional he was. So he was telling me that he went to all amateur competitions in either Europe, all the ones he found.
Wow.
And he won all of them the first prize. But I can understand, because he's a professional, but why they allow him to participate in amateur competitions? Because the requisite is that you are working in another different thing. Then I asked him, why you don't want to dedicate your life to piano? And he told me, I was thinking about it in 2020, but then came the pandemic. And because, he was very honest, by the way, because I earn much more in Google.
Right.
You see, that is the reason.
Money talks sometimes.
But actually, you see that this is an example that even people who are not dedicating their lives to piano, and they don't practice as much, are very well prepared.
Right.
Well, he probably at some point in his life, there's the Clyburn has a very good amateur competition, and then they have the junior and then the regular competition. And I think a few years back, a dentist from Colorado won the amateur. But then you look at his background, he has a master's degree from Juilliard. Okay, so I mean, he was clearly in his teenage years and 20s studying, 5, 6, 7 hours a day and practicing and doing competitions like we would be doing. But then he went off into dentistry, but he was still very good, So
well, and I think that goes to a point you were making earlier, which I think it's very important about being an artist, being an individual, getting to that kind of level. Demands, honesty and a not to be like you are bigger than the skill of piano playing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, to become an artist, you have to be willing to break the rules and do those things that in a way that both exemplify and break what is customary.
Yes. It's about breaking rules also. It's important to break rules, to know also what you don't have to do, and to know also what you have to do. In fact, some great pianist example, Glenn Gould, was breaking rules all the time on purpose. I think it's always better to break rules because you feel from inside that you want to break rules.
Right.
In his case was because he wanted to break rules because he didn't want to do the same that many others did before, which is also very okay, because in that case, you have your own ideas of what you want to do different. So see, that is original. And I think we should always try to do different things. And this is the beauty of performance. You see that all performances are so different. Even if you study with the same teacher, the same piece, it will sound different in your fingers. The sound will be different. Everything will be different because your soul and your heart and your mind is different. And that is the reason. You see, and this is the beauty of music, that all of us are different. And also, I am not a fan of the idea that some people say, this guy is talented and this guy is not talented. You see, because talent, what is talent?
Right.
Everyone has a different talent. You can have a talent that I don't have, or I can have a talent that she doesn't have, or she has a talent that, you see, that is always, everyone has a different kind of talent.
Well, and I think talent has a lot to do with desire. Like I'm talented because I do something a lot, because I love it.
Also, yes.
Right.
There's a famous phrase by Pablo Picasso, and he used to say that I always make sure that the inspiration finds me working.
That's beautiful.
You see,
yeah.
And you see, and that is the point, of course, always working, but also having your own ideas and having your own desires or how you feel things is also very important, you know.
Yeah, I think, sorry to cut you off. I think the word talent is a very tricky one, and it's often misused. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because we all have some talents. Maybe they're defined differently. I think one talent is a propensity to work hard. You know, you might not have this as much or this as much as somebody, but you might work much harder than them, and you can sometimes go farther.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, especially in this day and age, and especially in this country, it's very easy to see wonderful piano playing, let's say, and just say, well, yeah, but they're talented. Because then it takes away from, oh, well, do you know how hard they worked? Do you know how many hours? Do you know how hard their teacher worked?
What did that talent look like 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I meet parents so many times like, oh, I wish, you know, I'd kept up my piano from when I was a kid. I wish my parents would have forced me to do it, although I'm sure they tried and you argued with them, but fine. But, you know, I quit because I just didn't have the talent. And I'm thinking, well, maybe you didn't have the right teacher or the right situation, or you weren't motivated, or you didn't have enough practice time, or whatever. But
well, I love Aline's example, you know, of how she, like, how many kids today, and I would just say in America, I teach, you know, dozens of students, and how many kids today are wanting to practice because they love the piano, like you did.
That's a kind of a talent. That love for it. Not a lot of kids today would want to go to an instrument and practice.
Exactly. I wanted, and my parents were like, "Oh, Aline, you have to stop."
You have to.
I was very obsessed, and I have a tendency, if I start practicing very hard, I can be obsessed, and I can completely forget that I have a real life, because I can get that way. I already got that way in 2009. Well, I have a very big love for music. We all have. And then that's the reason we all do music, right? We all love music. We cannot think about, or we cannot imagine, let's say like that, our lives without music. That's what I think every time. I'm always thinking about music. Even when I don't look like that I'm thinking about music, I am thinking. Sometimes I'm thinking about the voice of the folk in my mind. I'm singing, you know, because I'm completely obsessed about Bach, and he's my favorite. You know that I'm obsessed about him. He's my favorite composer. So it's like, yes, music has the power to change lives, and for me, it's the most beautiful thing ever. So I feel very honored to serve music, because we serve. The music is the real star, and we are servers. That's what I think. That's my conception, or that's my perception, let's say like that, about music, you know?
Yes, and that is very, very important what you say. And also the environment, I think, is very important, where you are born. It's not the same if you are born in Ethiopia and you want to play piano than if you are born in, you know, in front of the best university in Germany, around musicians. It's totally different, you know, and so I think it has a lot of influence also.
Yeah.
Wow. By the way, just a quick thing. Do you have any, this is a hard question for a pianist, any favorite composer or composers that you,
or any that you're obsessed with right now?
Or you could be going in stages, like maybe when you were younger, you loved somebody or some composers more than others.
Well, you see that the taste is always changing. Because, for instance, when you are a child, you can love, I love Liszt always, and now I love Bach. It doesn't mean I don't love Liszt. I love him very much, but I feel a little bit more close to Bach now. See, so this is always changing, and I think by the music of the composer, you can know if you would have met in the real life this composer, if you would have had a good relation or not with him, if you would have connected with him or not. And therefore, I love Rachmaninoff, for instance. I love Bach, but there are some composers that I don't love as much. They are fantastic, amazing, but if I would meet them in person, I don't believe I would have a connection with them. You know?
You know what? I love that. I do think one of the exciting things about music, and I think unique things about the art form of music, is that we do have this like continuous 300-year-old dialogue. You know, once a painting is painted, we can appreciate the painting, we can love the painting, but it's static, it's there, that's what it is. You know, a book that's written, it's there, we can interpret it, we can do all sorts of things with it. But music, because we're continuously evolving it and playing it. You know, Bach on a piano is much different than when it was on an organ as it was originally written, for example. But we can have this like ongoing conversation in a way with this composer, and it's beautiful to me.
Exactly, because the score without the performer is nothing. And also, it's very important, I think, when we go to the stage, who is first? We are first because our ego does that. We want that people like us, or first the composer, after us, or first the composer after the public who is listening to you, and the last us. Because you go to the stage also in a different state of mind. If you put first yourself, you are much more nervous when you put first yourself. When you try to serve to the composer, and try to make happy people and try to find the beauty of music, you play much more relaxed on the stage.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
that's cool.
Do you find that, Elias?
It's good to reflect. I mean, I still get nervous with every performance.
No, me too.
Yeah, but it is true when I think about okay, this is great music that I can share. I think that the daunting thing for me is sometimes when I play a relatively big piece or a new piece, before I start, I think, gosh, that's a long way to go. I have to get through this, you know. But then once I start playing and kind of getting through it and enjoying it and telling a story, even if I make some memory slips or miss some notes, I start to enjoy it. And then before I know it, I'm halfway through the piece, and at the end, it's like, oh, that wasn't so long. Actually, it was kind of fun, you know. But it doesn't always happen that way.
I always wait for my first mistake, because once I make my first mistake, then I know, okay, I can now relax.
It's funny how recording and we talked about this too. Recording and live performance are so different. So yes. in a live performance, I'm usually very nervous before, and I might feel this same way backstage, and then I start playing, going through the recital, and I feel more comfortable as I play through it. Whereas with recording, I'm very relaxed before I start. I know this music, I can do, and I start playing, oh, it's good, and I'm getting more nervous because I don't want to make any mistakes. And anyway, it's kind of the reverse.
Well, I think, and I'm sorry, I very quickly, I think one thing that I notice when I'm performing in front of an audience that I forget until I start playing is that they're rooting for you.
Yeah.
You know, like they don't want you to fail. They're there to experience a beautiful thing. Yeah. And there's nobody in that audience that is like, oh, I can't wait till he makes a mistake. Yeah. You know, there's nobody like that really. And so, but I always forget that until I'm halfway through playing.
Yes. And I think it's also, nowadays, everyone wants to play by memory. That is also, I don't know. I think in my competition in the future probably will create a rule which allows to participants to play with the score. Because what is the most important? The most important is the music. And if it is a very good quality music, it doesn't matter if it will be with the score or without the score. My friend Olli Mustonen, a great pianist from Finland, he plays always with the score. He's one of the greatest pianists I have ever listened. Richter, in his last years, he played with the scores. You see, so why to put all this in your mind, especially when most of the many pianists, they don't understand what they are doing. You see, so why for? Even sometimes with the score in front, you have no idea what you're doing. It's also possible, you know? So this is exactly you need to know. Exactly you need to know.
You got to know how to read the score first.
When you go out with the score, I know some pianists who say, okay, but I'm more nervous when I win the score in front. But usually you get much more free if you get used to it. What happened? Your body movements change. Well, it's not the same that you have your eyes on a paper rather than you have the eyes there, and maybe your body, the gestures could be more free when you don't have the score in front. But also, I don't believe that for being a great artist and pianist, it's needed to know the pieces by memory. Just for maybe if someone wants to show how good memory he has, and that's it. But it's also for an ego reason, I believe. In fact, only from the time of Liszt, a pianist started to play by memory.
Yeah. And still not with chamber music. We use scores for chamber music. Yeah.
Even if Lynn Gould plays sometimes by memory in chamber music, But you see, that is the usual thing.
Yeah.
To play with the score, and why not? You see, the violin players, most of them, when they play in this, and then you go to a concert, you don't care about this at all when the musician is good, because when he goes with the score, you say, "Oh my God," because we are used that people play. But when he starts to play a very good quality music, you automatically forget this, and then you say, "Fantastic, amazing." You see, and that is also, I think, a good point to implant in the competitions, to put into the competitions that I was talking before, because most of the competitions, they demand that you play by memory. Then you get, of course, very stressed, because you have to put so many pieces in your head, and after you have to play in front of the public, and you don't want to mistake, and it's totally crazy. A part of that, of course, some pianists have visual memory, which means that they are able to write the score, which is a fantastic memory. For example, Sultan Koçis, that I met personally, he had this memory. And he had always the score in front. And when he conducted the orchestra, when he sit without the score, he was able to play all the parts of the orchestra. But he was a special case because he was kind of genius, But it's very good and very important, of course, to know whatever you do each moment. So what I want to say is that about the memory, which is one of the things that people is most afraid when they go to the stage.
Right. So if you can take that away.
Yeah, and this is why I told about the improvisation method. It helps a lot that you come more relaxed to the stage, A part of that, of course, there are very different kind of memories. Some pianists, I know very good pianists, they say the strongest memory is the muscular memory, when you repeat many times and you never forget. Even if you are not listening, you have the memory in the fingers. But I don't believe so. I think there are many kind of memories which you can develop. And then I think it's important to find the real reason why people is afraid to go to the stage. I discovered there are two main reasons. First, because people care a lot of what other people will think about them. The other reason is because, but it's inside of the same reason, because they are afraid to forget the memory. But why they are afraid? Because also, if they forget the memory, they care a lot of what people will think about them.
Right.
You see, it's very interesting. But when you are alone at your home, you don't have this kind of nerves. You see, because if you forget, you know that no one is going to judge you. You see, so I always try to find the reason of things. For instance, before, when some years ago, I was very afraid to fly. Now I'm not afraid anymore.
Good. I can learn from you. I don't like flying.
Yeah, right. You see, why most of people, now talking about people, is afraid to fly? We have to find the real reason. Because they are in the air? Not sure. Because the plane is small and they have claustrophobia? Also not sure. I think the real reason is because they are afraid to die.
Right.
If they know that the plane will fall down and they will not die, they will not be afraid to fly, And that is the real reason. And with the music, going to the stage, I think the real reason is also, most of the times, what people will think about me. How my ego will be hurted if I don't play.
Is my ego going to die?
Exactly. Is my ego going to, what is my image to the humanity, you see, when you play. So I believe that solving the root of the problem, we solve all the problems. That is what I think.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's right. And I think, at the end, like all of art's about like overcoming death. It seems to be, like what is the ultimate? What's the ultimate?
What are we here for?
Right,
to make art,
right.
Before we die.
Well, yeah, and what's the art there? Is to help us deal with death. So no, I think that's beautiful. I think that and if we can, and my teacher Chip, he always performed with the score. I think he had some slip ups and it kind of messed him with him. And unfortunately it caused him not to perform. He's such a beautiful artist, and he didn't perform as much as I think he would have or could have, because he felt that drive to have everything memorized and have everything perfect. And
and one important thing I forgot to say, and just I finish with this, that is also very important. When you make a mistake, It's all of us. We did at some point in our lives, not to punish ourselves after you do a mistake. Because many people do mistake and they say, they punish themselves for 1 week, 10 days, what I did, how terrible I play. They punish themselves, you see?
Right.
And that is absolutely not good for the psychology of the person. For mentally, it's not okay. And for your body, it's also not okay. Because next time when you will go out, you will be more afraid because you punished yourself before.
Right.
And you think it may happen again, you know?
That's brilliant. That's wise counsel there, Pablo.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't have anything else to say.
we've said it all.
Good. That was fun.
Pablo, tell us what are things that you're working on right now? What are your plans? What are the
Well, now
projects?
I'm preparing. I have 2 concerts with Marta Argerich in November. We play with the Symphonic Orchestra of Navarra, which was is the oldest orchestra in Spain because it was founded by Pablo de Sarasate, who was a famous violin player and also composer. And we play this on 15th of November. Also some new pieces which we didn't play in April, because in April we were playing also together there in Lleida, in Catalonia. And on 17th I play with the Symphonic Orchestra. We play with the Symphonic Orchestra, same program. And then I would like to focus when I arrive to Spain. In September I arrive to Spain, by the way, because first I have Montenegro. That I don't know how much tired I will be, but in any case I will start in September with these new pieces. We'll play a piece by Mozart Busoni, which is for mechanical organ for 2 piano, most probably, and also Debussy, which we never played before, then Shostakovich Concertino, Debussy Petite Suite.
Oh, you've never played? Oh, that's a great.
Yeah, I played with actually with coaches once in the secondo part, and then in this case also I will play secondo because she always played primo.
Yeah.
And this was a new piece concerning. This is the new piece that we changed, comparing with the one we play in April, because in April we play Ma Mère le Roi by Ravel, which is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult, because to get this sonority with a very delicate touch on the keyboard, you need also to have a fantastic technique for that. If we call technique, about
Sound production.
Sound production.
Yes.
And then probably, we will play again the Fantasy in F minor by Schubert,
I love
which is the last piece that Schubert composed. It's a very complex piece and extremely
is
difficult
hard.
to play. But because we play already in Lleida and it was quite good, we will play again now in November. And also I want to play, I have to propose here, but maybe it's too much program for the first half, the Rondo in A-dur, so A major by Schubert, which is also extremely difficult. And also I play the primo in that, and in the other I play primo. And in the second half we play the Carnival of Animals.
Oh,
Actually,
The 2 piano version or one?
the 2 piano version,
Okay.
yeah. There's 1 piano version, I didn't know.
Yeah, I've played it on 4 hands.
I didn't know that. We play 2 piano because in that case it was also a good idea. So we can do a program in the first half, because the original idea was Poulenc for 2 piano.
Yeah.
But with Poulenc, you play with orchestra, but it's not usual to play a first half. But because Carnival is around 24-25 minutes, then at least in Lleida worked very well. And then we put images of one visual artist who was projecting each of the pieces of the Carnival. And actually it was quite beautiful and people like it. And this we will repeat again with orchestra. Different format, because you know that the original piece is for ensemble of 8 instruments and 2 piano. And we did this with a stable group there in Lleida. And it was very nice because immediately we understood each other, which is very good. When you sit with musicians, you know that and automatically works, that you don't need to talk about anything else. But this is a different format. This I played in Argentina with José Luis Yuri, he's an Argentinian pianist, last November, not in Colón Theater, but in Córdoba Theater, which is the same architect, actually, than Colón. This is like they call the mini Cologne. This theater is fantastic. Still 900 people or almost 1,000 people. No, I think 1,000 people.
Wow.
And it was totally full. And it was fantastic to play with this Cordoba orchestra. So I have this experience of these two performances. This was my first performance of the piece in Argentina. And after with Marta was the second performance in Lleida with the ensemble. So I'm very excited to see how it will be with the orchestra and with the conductor. Nice. Because actually without conductor, it works really, really, really very well, you know.
I wish we could do some sort of, post-concert interview with you guys on a time zone difference, and you could.
Well, maybe we
could set something up. Join us, you and Martha Argerich, and pick her mind, pick her brain. Yeah, that
would be wonderful. Yeah,
great repertoire.
This has been a wonderful time. Aline, what about you? What do you have planned? Do you have? I know you have all kinds of stuff happening in Europe and Brazil as well as here.
Well, I have so many plans. I was invited to perform in Lincoln Center in New York. So I have to prepare myself for this performance because, I played in New York last year. Was the first time I played at the South Theater and with amazing musicians. So then the same music director, he invited me to perform at Lincoln Center, that is a wonderful venue. It's very important venue. So I have to prepare myself for that, psychologically speaking. Practice a lot,
right?
Take care of myself, and then of course I work in Brazil with the World Piano Teachers Association that I'm the vice president, and also here with API that I'm director. And then I have my students. I want to improve as a teacher. I have so much to learn and so much to improve as a musician. And I just want to continue learning and then continue improving and continue with my musical life, learning, reading a lot. I believe being a musician is also playing the instrument and also understanding the instrument and understanding music. But also I believe it's extremely important that we know a lot about art and philosophy and even psychology. So I try to read a lot about wonderful painters, wonderful poets, learning about Impressionism, learning about Monet, Manet, Gauguin, learning about other painters, Delacroix, and learning about all types of art, because this is going to influence in the way we play. And I think in the way we understand music and understand life. So that's what I think. Yes.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely true. And awesome. Brother Elias, the man, the machine. You can find stuff about Elias at eapettersson.com still, right? What you got going on? Anything? Good. Any concerts coming up for you?
I finished a few. Nothing right. I do have some things coming up with this new music ensemble I play with. So that's going to be coming up.
Fun.
We'll see how.
Pablo, if people want to find you and find out where you're performing or what you're doing, do you have a website or do you have a place that?
Yes, I have a website. It actually has my name and surname, and everyone who is interested can enter there with my future projects.
Is it a .com or
It's .com.
Okay. So PabloGaldo.com.
.com, yes.
We'll definitely put that in the show notes. Yeah, absolutely.
This is my website, so I am grateful to be here, and thanks to Aline for the invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for being on And If Love Remains. I mean, this has been a pleasure for us. Aline, thank you so much for not just organizing, but being on the show. You're beautiful. It's wonderful.
There's a first like this where we did all in person, 4 people.
I know, cool. little
round table,
fireside.
I like it.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. You've been listening to And If Love Remains.
Mike is gone.
You are listening to And If Love Remains.
Gone but not forgotten.
First of 23 installments requested by Dr. Leavitt. Trying to be in compliance here because we're taking him and that whole organization down.
Speak peace
peace like a Buddhist.